A space to speak your mind with Cornwall Mind.
Welcome to A Space to Speak Your Mind, a radio programme and a podcast about mental health and wellbeing made by people with lived experience as part of a wellbeing group run by Cornwall Mind. We do occasionally cover subjects that some listeners may find distressing. For more information, help and support, please visit cornwallmind.org. I'm Richard and this is our special February show for Time to Talk Day, which takes place today, Thursday the 6th of February. On this month's programme, I'll find out more about the day with Joe from Cornwall Mind. Fashion journalist, stylist and writer Susannah Constantine, best known for Trinny and Susannah, is offering her tips and advice on why mastering your morning routine can help with sticking to those healthy New Year's resolutions made at the start of the year. As this week is Children's Mental Health Week, Victoria will be chatting to children's author and mum of three Esther Marshall about how books provide the perfect environment to spark those conversations. We'll be catching up once again with Dan Pascoe, who's running the London Marathon to raise awareness of Huntington's disease. Lucy from Cornwall Mind will be telling us about Barkrun and the Firewalk, which are taking place very soon. And as we're recognising Time to Talk Day, Emma Morgan will be sharing her personal experience that led to her work as a published author.
A space to speak your mind.
Time to Talk Day is an annual day in the mental health calendar set aside to begin the conversation around mental health. And this year, it's taking place today, Thursday the 6th of February. And we welcome back Joe from Cornwall Mind to find out more about this year's event. So thanks for joining us again, Joe.
Hi, Richard.
So tell me more about Time to Talk Day this year.
So Time to Talk Day was originally launched in 2014 by Time to Change, and it's run by Mind, Rethink Mental Illness, and in partnership with Co-op. It's a day all about creating supportive communities by having conversations with family, friends, colleagues about mental health. We've all got mental health, and by talking about it, we can support ourselves and others. It's just a great campaign to get people comfortable talking about mental health. Time to Talk Day in 2024, so last year, revealed that nearly 2/3 of the UK public put on a brave face to avoid talking about their mental health. And nearly half of us are less likely to open up as we don't want to worry others in already difficult times. So that's why it's really important to get everyone comfortable and start talking about their mental health. And it really helps reduce the stigma.
And what has Cornwall Mind been doing this year?
So on Monday, which has just gone on the 3rd of February, we were at the Old Inn in Mullion and just really invited people in for a chat and a cup of tea and a bit of cake.
And since we last spoke, Cornwall Mind has started a few new projects, including the Ember Project. What's all that about?
Yeah, Richard, it's such a good service. We're offering free support for people experiencing problems around binge eating. It's currently available in the north and east of Cornwall, but that is from sort of Truro, St Austell and Newquay up, so it covers quite a wide area. We know that eating problems cause so much distress for people. So Ember is a binge eating project and it's delivered by Cornwall Mind, the NHS Adult Eating Disorder Service and Pentraeth. And it's a project, it combines one-to-one support. So people will have a caseworker and they can look at things like CBT, compassion focus, mindfulness, nutrition, psychoeducation, body image work. And then there are some really good reflective exercises and lots of peer support where participants, they're enabled to develop alternative, healthier coping strategies and more positive thinking. It's open to anyone over 18 and it's free. And you can just refer yourself through our website, cornwallmind.org.
And the other project is called the Noah Project, and this is in partnership with the RSPCA branch in Cornwall.
Yeah, this is support for people that are struggling with issues around animal hoarding. Animal hoarding is when you keep too many animals to provide proper care for. So we've got this brilliant project with the RSPCA in Cornwall where people are supported in both early and late stages of animal hoarding, and it'll help address the underlying causes of hoarding and encourage animal ownership that's healthy, safe and sustainable. It's another free service and you can refer yourself through our website, cornwallmind.org. And we're about to launch one of our 5 Ways to Wellbeing programmes. This time it's an outdoor programme and it's at Cheyenne Farm in Penryn. And we're partnered with Serco Kerno on this one. So it's set outdoors at Cheyenne Farm and you'll learn about each of the 5 Ways to Wellbeing and how you can incorporate them into your everyday life. It's a programme that's just all about getting outside, connecting with nature and taking care of our minds and bodies in a fun and supportive environment. It's a 7-week course, it's free. And you can just sign up via our website, cornwallmind.org.
And when does the project start?
It's starting on the 26th of February and it'll be every Wednesday for 7 weeks between the hours of 10 and 1 p.m.
So there's more information on the Cornwall Mind website, which is cornwallmind.org. And also, if people check out the socials, they can find out all the up-to-date information about the groups and activities that Cornwall Mind are running. So thanks again, Joe, for being here and letting us know what's happening this month.
A space to speak your mind with Cornwall Mind.
This Children's Mental Health Week, we're discovering the vital role books play at allowing parents to discuss mental health with their children, but also the need for improved mental health support for young children and their families. Children's author and mum of three, Esther Marshall, is here to tell us how books provide the perfect environment to spark those conversations. And here she is chatting with A Space to Speak Your Mind's Victoria.
So we're here with Esther Marshall, children's author of the Sophie Says series. Hi, Esther.
Hiya.
So you're here today to tell us about some mental health research regarding children's books.
I am indeed, yes. We conducted some research around kind of two main areas, around how kind of books and reading help children with their emotions, and then also about how parents feel around the current kind of mental health crisis and what the government are doing. So if we kind of lean into the kind of books and reading element, almost 2/3 of parents were saying that bedtime is the best time for a child to open up about their feelings. And 7 in 10 agree that books give an opportunity to talk about feelings when they're calm. 49% think that their child trusts them more when they incorporate kind of characters from their favourite books into these kind of conversations. And then the government kind of stats that we found is, it doesn't surprise me, but they are quite startling, that kind of 75% of parents say more needs to be done by the government to support children's mental health. And 77% say that more funding needs to go into the NHS for this, which I'm sure you guys are fully aware. And so what I've tried to do with these books is, from a personal story from my sister who suffered greatly with her mental illness, and it didn't end well for us, for her or for our family, and mine were actually fantastic. But on the day that we found out that she passed, I basically said, I'm not going to let this happen to any other family or any other child again. How can we get to a place whereby young children understand how to talk about their feelings? And parents and teachers at the moment, we didn't learn this growing up. This wasn't part of our kind of everyday. And that's why I've tried to create this Sophie Says series, which is kind of making life's most important lessons fun to learn, into really fun and engaging books that are conversation starters for parents and teachers to have with children around opening up about their feelings, so it becomes a natural part of their day.
So how do you think your books encourage that conversation about mental health?
I've tried to create kind of really relatable characters, one from what they can see so that it relate to them, but also that each of the characters kind of has their own storylines and has their own feelings, so that children don't have to get into the complex issues of, I feel this or I feel that. They can say, I feel like Jamie today, or I feel like Priya today in the stories. And then the parent or the teacher knows exactly what they're feeling. There's also kind of really much more kind of age-appropriate language. So there's a lot of rhyming, there's a lot of repetition, so that it kind of subliminally goes in. And then coupled with that, I've got like interactive elements, which I find helps the most when I'm at schools doing the author readings and when parents and teachers are giving me feedback. So there's Sophie and her friends that are in the books, but Bunny is part of their little crew. Bunny is very cheeky, and Bunny hides on lots of the pages. And so children love reading the books to try and find where Bunny's hiding. And because of that, parents, carers, teachers said, we're able to read the book to them 2 or 3, 4 times more than we would a normal book. And therefore, these messages are kind of being instilled in them subliminally as well as being spoken to, because it's happening even more because of these interactive elements. And so that helps to normalize the conversation. It helps to make mental health topics like a natural part of life and encourages an open dialogue.
So you've obviously been recognised quite significantly. I noticed you had reviews from Frankie Bridge, Emma Willis, Fern McGann, and you've won some awards. What does this all mean to you, with the background as well to the story of the books?
Yeah, it really is, I guess, humbling, but it's also, it kind of, I guess, makes me realise that what we're doing is kind of worthwhile, because there are days when this is my grief journey as well, where it's not very easy. And, we're speaking about mental health, and there are days where there are some very bad days where this all gets a little bit too much. In fact, a few weeks ago, we just had Rebecca's anniversary of when she passed. And big people like that who come on board and recognise that what you're doing and talk about what you're doing and how important it is, and spreading the awareness, really helps kind of galvanise on those days when you think, this is all a bit too much, this is all a bit too raw, and how do I keep on doing this, and how do I keep creating a legacy? That's when it really, really helps.
What do you think the key issues are for children with regard to their mental health, and how it can be improved going forward?
I really think there's a lot around the pandemic and how the pandemic has affected children from all ages. I think there's a massive part around social media and how much children are seeing at a young age that is playing into that. the amount of kind of things that they're seeing, whether it's from older brothers and sisters, social media, the anxiety. I mean, I'm in schools all the time and I'm speaking to head teachers and teachers, and they all say to me that anxiety is at an all-time high. They've never known anything like it. Therefore, that's one of the main reasons also I'm trying to do this. There just aren't enough resources out there for teachers, for parents, for carers to be able to have this conversation. What we all find is quite a scary topic, but I think what I've tried to do is distill it down so it becomes a fun and engaging topic that we can use from when they're really young, so it doesn't have to become this dark and horrible topic. And so I think there's a huge amount more I'd like to see from a community point of view, from a parent point of view and a schooling point of view, and then also from the government as well. And you know as well, there's been funding put into this space, but it just isn't enough. We've got a crisis at the moment whereby children are waiting years for support. I saw it with my sister. She was going through psychosis at the time and there were not enough beds, and I had to deal with taking her home and having a 5-day psychotic episode with her at my house, with crisis calling me, telling me how to support, what to do, what to put away in the flat, what to do, etc. I was pregnant at the time. This wouldn't be the case with other things. Yeah, my mother has cancer at the moment. That's not the kind of support that she's receiving at hospital, whereas the support that we received with Rebecca is so stark of difference that it really drives me in that there has to be a change.
What age was your sister when she passed away?
She was 28.
So young.
But this started really, really from a young age, and you could see it goes. But then it was being a junior doctor and the stress that then put on meant that she didn't necessarily have the tools to be able to then deal with everything that was coming her way.
So are there more books in development right now?
There are. I've just written another 2, so we're going through the illustration process with those, but the illustration process takes a while. What we've then done as well to kind of branch out was so many parents said to us, these books are fantastic conversation starters because we don't know how to start it. But now we've actually ignited and started this wonderful conversation, but we don't know how to then continue the conversation. So we then worked with teachers and educational psychiatrists and psychologists to put together kind of feeling and affirmation cards that link and have the same colours and pictures of the characters. And so now parents are using, and teachers are using the books as a conversation starter, and then using the affirmation and feeling cards as a follow-on to get them to go into deeper detail about their feelings. And then coupled with that, we've also partnered with mental health professionals to write a course called Finding Bunny, going on the fact that the kids find Bunny. But what they do is they go through a whole 6-week program with the Sophie Says characters and find out about themselves and how they're feeling and how to articulate their feelings. So that we're basically coming from it from both angles, from a home place and then also from a school, so that these messages just get instilled constantly from a young age, so that it just kind of helps develop this natural narrative that children are just absolutely okay with talking about how they're feeling.
What's the feedback been from the teachers you've engaged with?
The teachers, they absolutely love it, because basically I went in and we did pilots with all these different schools and we worked out, like, what is it that teachers need, right? They are so time poor and they've got so much to do. And so we've literally written all of the lesson plans, everything. There's all the videos online. They literally just have to kind of talk them through. And a lot of the characters do the course for them. So the kids are interacting with the characters. So it's not necessarily like, oh, my teacher's telling me to do this. It's, oh, Sophie's talking to me today, or whoever it is. And they're absolutely loving it. And they say from when they start it to when they finish it, it's such a stark difference to how they're able to articulate themselves, and it helps the classroom dynamic as well. They use the feeling and affirmation cards as well in the classroom on the desk. So if you've got some kids who can't necessarily verbalize how they're talking about it, one of them, a teacher said to me the other day, one just held up at one point, I am angry. And so they knew straight away, they didn't have to go through a whole tantrum or anything. He just put up this card and then they knew they could take him out and they could talk to him and calm him down. But it took out so much of the kind of dynamic that could have taken up 15, 20 minutes of a lesson and really helped. So it's so great to hear that this is working.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
We've linked it to kind of the PSHE as well, because we understand how difficult it is for teachers. And so there's a whole part of the PSHE curriculum in the UK that's social and emotional wellbeing. And so each of the courses of the 6 courses links to part of that PSHE. So it is then also ticking off the curriculum as well as then enhancing everything.
Just before we go, what would you like to see, a couple of things that could be done in this area to support children's mental health? Have you got like a couple of things that you'd really like to see going forward that could change?
Yeah, I think considering I go into schools so often, one of the main things I really want to see is an increased access to mental health resources in schools and communities, be that community centres and schools. Yes, we're doing it through Finding Bunny, but that's just me going to schools and giving them the programmes. There should be something from the government whereby this is just something that happens in every single school, regardless of the background of the children and whether the school can afford it or not. It should just be blanket. And then the other thing I was saying to you before about kind of funding, there just needs to be more. We need to not have the waiting times that children are having at the moment. And from a resources and books point of view, we've done some research to find that there's over 400,000 children in the UK that don't have a single book at home. And so it kind of leans into the message of what I'm trying to do, as Sophie says, around kind of diversity and inclusion of it doesn't matter who you are or where you come from, you deserve to have a book at home. So for every book that is purchased, we then donate one to a child who doesn't have one at home through various charities all over the UK that are working with these children that don't have a single book at home. So all of these things are really trying to make a change. I'm just hoping and praying that they do.
It's great that you're so passionate and definitely a worthwhile kind of venture here. Where can people find out about the books and the affirmation cards and all the general information?
Visit us on our website at www.sophiesaysofficial.com. You can come over and follow me at Esther Marshall on Instagram, at Sophie Says Official on Instagram, and everything that we're doing is on there. All the links on there to buy everything as well. Same on our website. And then on Instagram, I kind of update all the time of when I'm going into schools and how you can book the school author readings and the education program as well, the Finding Bunny, and then when new books come out and everything. So come and join the mission that I'm on, please. Reach out, any questions, it's all me. I'm answering everything, and I just really am trying to get the next generation to get to a place whereby this can just be the norm.
That's amazing. Thanks so much, Esther.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate all of your support.
And you can find the links Esther mentioned on the notes of this month's podcast. Just search for A Space to Speak Your Mind on Apple, Spotify or Amazon Podcasts.
A Space to Speak Your Mind.
With 2025 well underway, many of the resolutions we had planned for the new year may have already been tested. To help people stay on track with their health goals for 2025, TV fashion journalist, writer, style advisor and television presenter Susannah Constantine is on hand to offer tips and to share advice on why mastering your mornings may help some of those healthy resolutions continue through the year. And she joins me now, so thank you for being here.
How the hell are you?
I'm really well. We were just saying before, I've been for a little run this morning. I try and get into my morning routine. I've been for a 10k run along the coastline of Cornwall. And the thing is as well, I haven't had a chance over the last week. It is my mindfulness. It's my getting ready for the morning. It's the way I love to start the day. And I've been itching with the storms that we've had recently, not being able to do it. And I've just had that clarity that I love in the mornings to get on with my day and to be here joining you now. So that's been my morning routine. But tell me about yours.
Well, mine's quite similar, actually, except that I have the added benefit of taking Simprove every day, which is a water-based solution that has billions and billions of little live bacteria to keep my gut healthy. And then I run, but I don't run 10k. I do that once a week. I'm impressed. And I have hot water and lemon, but I always, every day, make sure I get outside. And if I get everything over and done with in the morning, then I can get on with my day because my mind is at peace, because I suffer from anxiety and various other things. And it just sort of provides that bedrock for the day going better.
Yeah, so I mean, my history is very similar. I've had anxiety and depression most of my life. The thing that really got me out of a really dark place was doing some exercise. It was never something I did in the past. I was never a sporty person. I started running and that gave me the clarity. So that's my thing. And I found out in the last couple of years, I know it's a big topic at the moment around neurodiversity, the ADHD and slight autism. I have a planned day. I have to do things in a certain way. I'm a morning person. In the afternoons, my brain goes fuzzy and I can't do anything. And that's been my experience. And I think you've had similar things with your family as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have ADHD in our family. Both my daughters have been diagnosed, properly. It's kind of, and what annoys me about ADHD is it's almost kind of like become a trend on social media, which takes away from the seriousness of that disorder. And I'm like you, running has become my thing.
What are your other sort of ideas for mornings routines? Because I think it can be difficult, especially when we're in the winter period, to have that routine. Are there other things that you do as a family or on your own?
I always go outside and get some fresh air in the morning and see whatever light is available on that particular day. There's not much at the moment. And then I have hot water and lemon. And they're just little things, it's doing little things often and making that routine. And that provides a bedrock for the rest of my day. And I am religious about those things now. I do it every single day. And if I don't, then I really feel sort of destabilized.
We're approaching Time to Talk Day, which is a major day in the mental health calendar. I'm just wondering your thoughts on having open conversations around mental health and maybe experiences you've had approaching particular subjects.
Yeah, open conversations are very important. And I think open conversations between, so if it take ADHD, it's two people with ADHD who have that conversation. And, one of my daughters, we did a podcast called ADHD Chatter, and we did it together. And I learnt so much from my daughter because it was a very candid, open conversation. And I learnt so much from her about what it's like. And most likely I've got ADHD as well, but I feel I'm too old to get it properly diagnosed, and I've managed this far. But I think it's essential that we're more open about it. But I think it can almost go too far. And, like I said, when it becomes like a social media trend, that's quite damaging. So I think it has to be contained so people take it seriously and they don't just jump on the bandwagon. But I think, it's fantastic that we are now having these conversations.
Are there particular things you've learned with your daughter? Are there different ways that you now approach daily life, or other kind of mitigations that you do? I know you're saying there we have to be quite careful, but I mean, I think for me, just the knowledge of my own experiences makes me able to do things in a slightly different way. Are the kind of things that you do in your daily life?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's absolutely correct. And if you kind of understand yourself, and I think once you are self-aware, then you can create the tools and you can give yourself the opportunity to take yourself out of situations or not do something or do something in a different way. And, so like my daughters have it, they both got it, and one of them is very vocal and very open and very knowledgeable, actually, and very eloquent about it. And my other daughter is much more private and self-contained. Hers is like a quiet ADHD. And my other daughter is like, but she knows how to deal with it, and she's taught herself. She hasn't been told. She's taught herself how to manage it.
Sometimes for those that are not diagnosed, they might use masking techniques, and it's things that we've learned over the years to cope in a society.
And it's hard. It's exhausting. When you're so right, the masking techniques, it's really tiring because you're pretending to be someone you're not. So it's almost like you're performing constantly. And then you forget who you are as a person, who you really are. You become someone else that isn't actually you. And I think by talking about it as well, other people who may be questioning or wondering or feeling insecure, they feel less alone. When you hear someone else's story, you feel less alone. And then that gives you the kind of encouragement to open up about it yourself.
So let's talk more about these healthy routines. So we talked about the supplements that people can take. Are there any other things that we can do to kind of get into a routine? Because I think that, as we've mentioned, it's so difficult sometimes. I think maybe exercise, it's just persistence really, isn't it? But are there other things that you think might help people that they might not be aware of?
I think it is setting yourself goals that are achievable. They're not these impossible targets like I'm, going to drop 2 dress sizes, or I'm going to be able to do pull-ups. That actually, I've given myself a year to try and be able to do a pull-up. So that's my goal. It is these things which little and often that stack up, and maybe it's just adding an extra vegetable to your meal. Maybe it's, I love the glucose goddess, who's this, I think she's had a Channel 4 show, and she says, first thing you should eat is some broccoli and then protein. And I've started doing that. I'm fundamentally quite a lazy person, and I want I want someone else to do it for me. And then things which are, don't take up much time or effort.
It's doing those simple things. I think sometimes we have that habit of, especially in the new year, we might try and do everything all at once. But if we just make a slight change, it's more manageable, isn't it? And then once we're into that habit, I think, they say it could take 30 to 50 days for a habit to form.
But don't think of it like, okay, so for 30 to 50 days, I'm going to do this. I mean, no. Today, I'm not going to have a glass of wine. Or today, I'm going to have 3 glasses of water. Or today, I'm going to walk for 20 minutes. And that's just today. So just look in the day. And then tomorrow, you said the same thing to yourself because you don't know what's going to happen. So just make your kind of changes that you want to make a daily target, not an overwhelming, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life, the next 3 months, for the next 25 days. Being
present in the moment, that is the centre of mindfulness. And I think not being harsh on ourselves. If we do slip up, we are human, things can happen. Just learn from that, see how that makes us feel, and restart again and pick up where we left off.
Exactly, we can always press restart, and that's fine. None of us are perfect, thank God.
Where can we find out more about what we've been talking about today?
Well, go on to simprove.com, and there's so much useful research with the results on there, and it's fascinating, and you will find a lot more about how a healthy gut can impact your everyday.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for chatting with us today. That's TV fashion journalist, writer, style advisor, TV presenter. You do it all. It's amazing.
La, 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 la.
Susannah Constantine, thank you so much for chatting with us today.
Thank you.
A space to speak your mind with Cornwall Mind.
It's a space to speak your mind, and we're joined by Lucy from Cornwall Mind to talk about some exciting events that are happening very soon. So thank you for being back on the show, Lucy.
Hi, Richard. Thank you for having me back on. And it's wonderful to be here to tell you all about a couple of spring events that we've got in our calendar. Hopefully, you'll be keen to sign up and join us.
Well, the first one was so popular, we brought it back. It's Barkrun. For people that don't know, what is Barkrun?
So Barkrun is, as the name gives it away, it's a 5K run or a walk or a jog or a plod with your dog at National Trust Trilisic on Sunday the 2nd of March at 9 o'clock. Once again, the wonderful friends and partners of ours at Trilisic have gifted us a unique one-off course. It's an opportunity to take part in a 5K that you'll never ever be able to do again at the Trust. It's a really exciting route that takes in part of the gardens, part of private parkland, as well as some of the woodland paths, finishing outside the stately house at National Trust Trilisic. So we're thrilled to bring this route to the events calendar, and it's something that is going to be a real celebration of the wonderful benefits that ownership of dogs and their companionship brings to us all. And it's a day to come and grab the lead and take part in a wonderful fundraising 5K for Cornwall Mind.
And there's lots of supporters involved in the event, aren't there?
Gosh, Richard, we've been really lucky this year. We've welcomed back some previous sponsors. We've welcomed back Sea Salt and the Doghouse, who are gifting us some lovely race numbers and also some items for our doggy bags, because all our wonderful woofers will be given a doggy bag when they cross the finish line. We are also thrilled to be working alongside with the Rotary Club of Truro Boscawen, who are providing their wonderful team of marshals to keep everybody safe on the route. The National Trust, of course, we're hugely beneficial for their gift of space. And 2 new event partners this year. We've got Eden Vets, who are our headlining sponsor, so they'll be there on the day running on the course and being available to talk to people about any kind of animal welfare issues. And we're welcoming Harland Accountants, who wonderfully are sponsoring our race medals. So for every human participant that crosses the finish line, they're going to be given a wonderful custom made medal, which has been kindly sponsored by our friends at Harland Accountants. So really lucky that we're able to work in partnership with so many sponsors to really make this a wonderful event for everybody taking part.
And the last Barkrun took place in October 2022, and we covered it here on the show. So let's have a listen to some of the people that took part last time. So we've got some more finishers here. What's your name?
Jacob.
And who have you got with you here?
This is Lumi.
And how was the run for you?
It's pretty great. Bit of mud, but makes it fun. Makes it better for them anyway.
And obviously supporting Cornwall Mind, is that important to you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fab course to be coming out for, and it's great to see so many people here as well.
What's your names?
Zack and Kat.
And you're raising money as well for Cornwall Mind?
Yeah. Supporting any charity that sort of supports mental health is really important.
Yeah. And what's your name?
Craig.
How did you enjoy that?
Oh, it was a lot of fun getting out. Nice the weather held out for us.
And who have you got with you here?
This is Cooper.
And how did Cooper enjoy it?
He did. Oh, he was a bit frustrated on the lead because there was some squirrels about.
Oh,
but
wow.
He enjoyed pulling me along, giving me a little bit of help.
Brilliant.
Up the hills.
Who have we got here?
We got Bear and Christian, and this is...
I'm Victoria.
Oh, wow. And how did you enjoy that today?
Tough but good.
Yeah, I'm very, very proud of Christian. Did well.
I did well because I suffer from depression and anxiety, so this charity is close to my mind.
Yeah.
So it's good to get out, spread awareness for mental health.
So what's your name?
Amanda.
And who have you got here?
This is Tizzy.
And how did you enjoy the run today?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Just the right amount of walk for her. We had to leave the older one behind. Too old.
And great to be raising money as well for Cornwall Mind.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. Very dear to my heart because my daughter's have both got friends that have been troubled by this. So yeah.
So really great to hear the experiences of the people that took part last time, and we're hoping for that again this year.
Yes, entries are looking really positive so far, Richard. There's still time to sign up. Adult and dog entry is just £18. Adult only is £12, and for children it's only £8. So we're really hoping that it's going to be as accessible and inclusive for as many people as possible. You know, it's a real gift to our own well-being, isn't it? You know, a 5k walk or a 5k run, being in nature, in beautiful countryside, with all these lovely woofers and wonderful dogs around us, connecting with our friends and family, and raising money for local mental health here in Cornwall. So it's a really wonderful event, and we're really thrilled to bring it back to the calendar.
And the next event is one that happened a couple of years ago and was really popular, as I remember. And I'm hoping to be there for this one as well. This is the Firewalk.
Yes, Richard. So it's not for the faint-hearted, and it's definitely one of those epic challenges that many of us have in our kind of mind's eye, that it's something we'd like to take on as a personal challenge. And those that have taken part before, myself included, it was definitely one of the most inspiring journeys of my life that I've ever experienced. It was incredible. So yes, there's no illusions, there's no special effects. It's just you and the fire. And it's a challenge to walk barefoot over red hot wood embers. And there's a mandatory 75-minute training session beforehand. So everybody will be fully prepared and briefed and supported through their Firewalk journey. And you'll be joining our Fight for Better Mental Health here in Cornwall. It's £25 to register, and there's a £100 minimum sponsorship, and all participants are asked to raise. It's a great event. We're wonderfully lucky to have the support of Mount Pleasant Eco Park, who are hosting us for the evening. They've got a formidable, great event space. It's just going to be a really fun night. It's something that hopefully many people will want to sign up to do, but there are limited places available. So if you are keen, check out our website, cornwallmind.org, and find out how to register.
And you mentioned there are limited spaces, so people need to be really quick if they want to take part this year.
Yes, we've only got 25 places available, and we haven't got that many left. So if you are keen to take part in this incredible, life-changing experience, please get in touch now and try and register as soon as possible, just to guarantee your place. It really is a life-changing event for many people. We'd love to welcome you along. So that's at the end of March. That's Friday the 28th of March. And yes, it starts at 6:00 in the evening, and it's going to be a great night.
And as always, all the information and how to take part is on the Cornwall Mind website, which is cornwallmind.org. Thank you so much for joining us, Lucy, and we look forward to seeing you at these events.
A space to speak your mind with Cornwall Mind.
It's a space to speak your mind, and if you remember back in March 2021, we talked to Dan about Huntington's disease and how it has affected him and his family, and he's back on the show to give us a little bit of an update on what he's been doing since we last spoke. So once again, Dan, thank you for being here on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I can't believe it's been so long.
It really has been quite a while. And when we spoke before, you were telling us a little bit about Huntington's disease and how it had affected your family, and finding out if it was something that might affect you in the future. Just remind us a little bit about the history.
Yeah, so Huntington's disease is a pretty nasty thing, to put it mildly. It is an incurable neurological disorder. It is an inherited thing. So, of course, I'm at 50-50 risk because my dad had the condition. Essentially what it does, the best way I can describe it is a condition that slowly switches lights off, so it will affect your physical, your emotional, your cognitive functions, and bit by bit it will slowly turn the lights off, and eventually you will pass away from the condition because there is no cure and there is no treatment at the moment. We are getting a bit of hope when it comes to scientific advancements, which is great, something we've never had before, but it is a pretty nasty thing. It's been in my family, affected my dad, my aunt, my grandma, who I never met, and sadly, because of the taxing nature of it, it slowly starts to take away from you, both your physical life, your emotional well-being, and things like that. It is a horrible thing, and people suffer mentally quite a bit when it comes to Huntington's disease. And sadly for me, both my dad and my auntie took their own lives, and that has stayed with me for a very, very long time, knowing that not only is it a physical thing that is so horrible, but the mental taxing nature that comes with it as well has stuck with me. So I've always been very open about talking about mental health and how you should look after yourself. And if you can reach out, then do reach out. So it's a long history when it comes to me and Huntington's disease. At the time we spoke last time, I made the decision decision not to be tested, because you can get tested to find out whether you have the condition or not. My decision is still the same, that I'm not having kids at the moment, and when I do have kids, maybe I'll make the decision to get tested then to find out whether I'd be passing on the condition or not, and whether I need alternative methods. But at the moment, I'm happy living my life as I am and trying to do the best I can do without that burden on my brain.
And a lot of this is raising awareness as well. So when we last spoke in 2021, you took on the 28 for 28 challenge, which was a fundraiser to do 28 minutes of exercise every day back in February. And I think you raised over £2,000 for that, didn't you?
We did, and we did it for 3 years, which is kind of crazy to think about. We raised something like nearly £8,000 in the end, but that year, around about £2,000. And it was just amazing to see how many people got involved with it. And like you said, 28 minutes of exercise for the 28 days of February. And it didn't matter what it was. If you wanted to run, you could run. If you wanted to dance, you could dance. If you wanted to walk, if you wanted to crawl, whatever you wanted to do, you could do it, as long as it was 28 minutes every day. And we ended up building a crazy, crazy positive community right around the world. People doing it in Tokyo, America, Germany. You know, it was beyond my expectations. And the fact that we were able to do that and raise so much awareness and funds and build a community was far beyond whatever I expected. So very proud of that now.
And lots of other positive things came from that as well, because I remember us talking about running and how you were going on that pathway to just doing some more exercise and just feeling good and using that as a positive aspect to raise awareness. But you got a lot from the running aspect as well for yourself.
Yeah, I did not bet on that at all. That was something I never foreseen happening whatsoever, Richard. It was one of those things that's really kicked into gear this year more than anything. When I was doing the 28 for 28, I felt this pressure that I needed to make sure I was doing it, to be seen that I was doing it. Whether I enjoyed it was another thing. This year, we're training for what we'll probably chat about in a moment with the marathon. It's been mental clarity. It's been, my partner says to me that you can tell when I haven't run because I'm not in the best mood I could possibly be in. What running has given me this year mentally has given me a bit of freedom. It's been discipline. It's been able to get out. When things are feeling too much, it's been able to give me that physical release as well. And I never foresaw that coming whatsoever, because running is hard. It's really hard. And I never thought for the life of me I'd be out there going, oh, I love it. Like today, on the time of recording, it's been hailing and raining and I was out doing intervals. And I didn't complain. I loved it. But I never thought that would happen. And yeah, I've got a lot to thank running for. I had a very complicated relationship with it at the beginning, but now I'm eternally grateful for it.
It's strange to speak to someone who's gone through that journey, because I went through a similar thing myself. And the way I try and describe it to people is it's kind of like a meditation for me. I mean, I'm not the kind of person that can sit and be silent and my brain is whirring. And I'm going through this journey myself around neurodiversity and this realization around ADHD and how that's impacted my life throughout my life, really. And that is something that when I run, I get that clarity, I get that silence, because we're doing something physical, we're doing something where we have to concentrate, and breathing is such a big thing around running as well. And I'm just wondering, do you get those similar things? Do you find the peace, the clarity? Is it a time that you can relax? How does it work for you?
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think I've seen lots of videos of, you see the sound and it's like a really busy city and they're like, this is what running's like, and they get the headphones and they just, the noise cancelling ones, and they put them on the head and suddenly it's just clear and you've got the clarity and you've just got that bit of breathing space, which is ironic because you're probably trying to run and you're breathing quite heavy, but you have got that moment to yourself and you're able, you're doing it for yourself at the end of the day. And yeah, it's like, I think there's a link between people that have experienced trauma and endurance sports. I really do think there is. And whether it's the sense of accomplishment of actually overcoming something and not letting something define you, or whatever it is, I know there's a link, and it makes perfect sense to me because it sounds like we're in the same boat, Richard.
A lot of people talk about the dopamine and the kind of chemicals. And I was watching something the other day and it kind of really broke it down for me, in the sense that there's a lot of negative things that we could do in our lives around alcohol or drugs or things like that, which kind of pull down all these levels. And our body is trying to get back to that natural level, and that's where a lot of depression and anxiety can come from, because our body isn't able to regulate. And I was watching how running gives us that natural high, because the exercise is basically us doing the exertion, which makes our body go, right, okay, we need to produce the serotonin and the dopamine to kind of counteract the exertion that we're doing. And that is why we have this huge lift which lasts throughout the day. And it's amazing, isn't it? Because then when we go to do other things, we still have that natural dopamine increase.
Yeah. absolutely spot on. I mean, right now, my legs are kind of a little, you know, that post-run feeling where your legs are a little bit fuzzy. I've got that, but I'm in such a good mood because I know I've got out and I've done it. And that's the thing. Ask me later when I try and stand out of a chair when I've been doing a radio show for 4 hours and then my legs are like, ugh, otherwise. But at the moment, loving it.
So tell me about the London Marathon. This is something that you've thought about. We're a few months away now, but it's that point where we have to really get into that training. What are your thoughts about doing a marathon? Have you ever done that kind of distance before? Is it something you're anticipating? Are you going to take it step by step? What's the process?
Well, the first thought was, oh my God. But then after I got over it, it's been a little bit more digestible. There's actually quite a funny story. So I entered the ballot because I always watched the London Marathon and I thought I should do that. I've never really run further than about 10 kilometers before. Now I've done quite a few miles, but at the time I was thinking I've never really run that far, but I love it. I love the emotion. I love the fact that people are achieving dreams. I love the fact that people are doing it for themselves and they've got a team of people and it's just so emotional and it's such a beautiful party and celebration of life. I want to do that. So I entered the ballot. And I thought, never going to get in here. And I didn't get in, lo and behold. And I was at Glastonbury Festival. And I'll be honest, it was 3 a.m. I'd just come out of a Portaloo. My friend was outside. And I got the email come through on my phone. And I got out of the Portaloo and I went, I didn't get in there. Because I had a sudden realisation that I don't think I can run 26.2 miles. That's insanity. And then the HDA got in contact and were like, well, you've expressed an interest before. So if you want to do it, we'll have a conversation and we'll see if we can get you in. I was like, well, if I'm going to do it, I want to do it for the HDA. And then lo and behold, yep, I'm in, I'm doing it. The thought process went from, right, okay, we need to get fit. We need to get fit and quickly. So I know a lot of people do a 16-week training block. I started training at the end of August. And obviously the marathon's in April. So I've done a little bit more than 16 weeks. I'm now officially in the proper training block. I did a 20-week program, but I did loads of running before to make sure my fitness was at a level. So when I go into it, it's not going to be this complete shock on my body and brain. So at the moment, we're doing well. I'm hitting the targets, feeling okay. Don't want to jinx it. Haven't got a cold, haven't got an injury, but there's a long road to go, Richard. You know that.
Yeah. But the thing is, it's such an enjoyable road. And this is the thing that when we start the running, it can be very, very demanding on our body. We have to kind of adjust. But I think when you gradually and over time increase those intervals as you're doing and doing more runs and having the shorter runs and then the longer runs, it's such an amazing process to be doing. So sometimes, it's great to have that end goal, and you're going to have that end goal, which is going to be fantastic because you're going to cross the line and raise so much money. But sometimes it's about the process as well.
It really is about the process. And you learn a lot about yourself. And that is something that I've really discovered physically. I mean, it's not about weight, but I've dropped a lot of weight from doing it. I've been eating cleaner. Mentally, I feel better. And, we still got so many weeks out from the actual marathon itself. And I just said to a lot of my friends, my main goal is to, 1, cross the line, but 2nd is to make sure I keep going afterwards. Once I've recovered, make sure I don't lose this, because I've got more clarity now than I've had in a long, long time.
And you're raising money, as you say, for Huntington's disease, for the association. Where are we up to now, and where do we want to get to?
Oh gosh, we're at I think over $2,000 already, which is incredible, because through the 28 for 28s, we raised roughly about £2,000 to £2,500 each time in total. The fact that we're this far out from the marathon and we're already over £2,000. I know professionally I've taken on some new job, but it's just so nice that people feel connected to the story. I know that a lot of people who've experienced loss through suicide have connected with the story, who've had experienced ill mental health, have sort of resonated with it and overcoming a challenge. And it's nice to see so many people come together. But yeah, just over $2,000 at the moment. I'd like to hit 2,500 by my 31st birthday. That's my goal at the moment. And then anything extra is a bonus. But I'd like to hit 2,500 by my 31st, which is the 13th of February.
What can we do to make this happen? Where do we need to go on socials, and how can we donate and get that message out, get the awareness out there for people that don't know about this?
So you can follow me on all social media. I am Daniel Pascoe, because Daniel Pascoe is taken, and if he is listening, I'm coming for your handle. Follow me on all socials. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky, X, all the usual suspects. And of course, I'm quite regular with posting. I try and do some silly, fun content because at the end of the day, my job is a radio presenter and I like to make people laugh. So there's a lot of stuff that should be entertaining and laughing at myself, but also hopefully there's a serious mental health message and charity message behind it as well. And hopefully people can get on board with that and join this community. You can support me on Just Giving. So it's justgiving.com/page/Daniel Pascoe London Marathon. For some reason, you've got to add the page bit this year. I don't know why, but make sure you do that. justgiving.com/page/Daniel Pascoe London Marathon. Get involved. And everybody that donates, I'm asking for a song for my training playlist because you know that my job is to be involved with music. I'm a BBC introducing presenter. So anyone that donates, I don't care if it's £1 or £100. If you donate anything, suggest a song for my playlist because the playlist is very unhinged at the moment, Richard. I've got ABBA, I've got Scooter, I've got some heavy metal, I've got some really, really out there stuff. But you can decide what I listen to. If you want to promote your own music, you do whatever you want. It goes in my ears on my long runs and I'm enjoying the wild ride. So please get involved. We'd love it.
I love that. That is such a great thing to be able to do. I would say good luck, but I know you actually don't need the luck because you are going to absolutely smash this. It's going to be such an enjoyable time and I'm somewhat jealous, but I'm going to follow you. I'm going to try and get up to a good running length by the time that you are doing your marathon as well. So if people want to get involved and follow you on social media, we'll put the links as well through the podcast. Best of luck. It's going to be amazing. You're going to absolutely smash it.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you for always being a supporter and being a champion for looking after your mental health.
A space to speak your mind.
This is A Space to Speak Your Mind, and today is a special day in the mental health calendar. It's Time to Talk Day, and it's the chance to open up about our own mental health. Recently, Emma Morgan spoke to Cornwall Mind about the reason she became an author and her own experience, and here she is telling her story in her own words.
A space to speak your mind with Cornwall Mind.
I work for Cornwall Council as a health information provider, but also I've had my own personal experience of mental health and I'm quite happy to share it, which obviously I think that's a really good thing. Sharing all the people that work in mental health, the best ones are always the ones that have had the experience themselves. But the lovely thing about my story is that I'm a writer now. So after I had a breakdown, I had a breakthrough. I used to write little bits, but now I write and you know, I don't care what people think because when you have a breakdown, you break down your ego as well. And I'll talk about these books in a minute. So I think there was a lot of mental and physical issues. I think when we look at people in layers, we can look at their journey. You don't necessarily have to visit every trauma they've had, but I think when we look at their journey, there's always mental and physical issues that lead to their demise. So my demise is, I call it the breakdown. I try not to call it my breakdown. It was very severe, so I couldn't function. A lot of people, they go through life, perhaps they're born with it. So there's lots of different cases. So mine was that there was issues in my life, perhaps. So I'm going to take you through my life, unfortunately for you. Very briefly, just so you understand the little things, maybe the hammers that hit me that were never dealt with, and then eventually it probably led to my fall. And the final breakdown, because I initially had postnatal depression, the final breakdown lasted for 18 months. And I find that quite common with people when they have breakdowns. It's like this 18-month, 2-year period, and I'm quite fascinated with that. But what I do learn from those people that recover is that they recover really well. And I really am passionate about recovery because I think sometimes it can be clouded by medication and it can continue with. So I will be talking about medication as well. And I'm not against medication. I'm totally recovered. I'm not on any medication. But if you guys are on medication, I'm not judging it. I'm just saying sometimes it can be prolonged a little bit with medication and things like that. So please don't think I'm judging it. And you can hear I'm from the Midlands. I was brought up in the 70s, an affluent family really. In the 70s and 80s, you could make your own money, couldn't you, and have your own house. You can't really do that very often now, which is a big problem. My mum was a teacher, dad an engineer. My dad was actually an alcoholic, but no one ever spoke about it. So I was the youngest in the family. I think when my mum and dad married, he'd stopped drinking, but I was the youngest. By the time I was born, I think there was so much stress, he'd started drinking again. So he wasn't violent or anything. And when I say about my childhood, I never say about it's the sob story. I just kind of say, actually, I'm very lucky compared to some, but these were the things that happened. When I was 15, my dad died suddenly, and I was there in the house, and I discovered his body. We were in the 80s now, so that was quite a trauma. My mum was in London. We all kind of dealt with it, but we didn't, so no one gave us counselling, which didn't really happen in those days. So then I went to uni, and I kind of partied through the 90s, which a lot of people do, and I think I just buried everything, really. So I was lucky enough to get a degree, go to Sheffield, so had a lot of good times. Ended up in Bristol. I started working in recycling. I started driving. I was a bit of a rebel. Even though I got a degree, I went into marketing, but then I decided I didn't like that. So I was driving trucks around Bristol, recycling collectors. So I was about 2 women in the whole crew. But I was burning the candle at both ends. I didn't deal with anything that happened to me. I got glandular fever in my 20s, which I think was quite significant. When I recovered from it, I had these bouts of chronic fatigue. And actually, as a result of that, I got into, we call it alternative health, but natural health for treating it. But I look back on those fatigue as well, and I think that was also depression, which I wasn't dealing with. I ended up in Cornwall in 2000. I got pregnant with my son in 2010. I was quite I was 37, 38. We'd been trying for a few years. I didn't realise I was pregnant. 5 months after giving birth to my lovely son, everything's lovely now, by the way. He's a very healthy, which is really good because of the experience I had was really obviously difficult, but he was very young at the time. After 5 months after giving birth to him, I had a birth that I didn't want as well, which is interesting. I wanted a natural birth and ended up in hospital being hooked up. I don't know whether women know these stories. And you know, it's your first birth. I was older. They put me on the hormone drip. After I gave birth, it's quite significant. I bled for 12 weeks. No one really picked that up, so I was exhausted. Got a chest infection. They thought it was pneumonia. They gave me an antibiotic. Boom, I got a really bad, severe reaction. Now, if you look, there are studies out there that show that postpartum women don't react well to antibiotics and steroids. So I know that they sometimes have to have them, but they can initiate postnatal depression, and that's what it did for me. There was an older doctor picked this up, and he said, "What have they given you? Give me that. Basically, you've got one of the rare side effects." And so I went literally from having a bit of experience of depression to not sleeping, suicidal, wanting to jump out the car. So that was a shock. I was able to look after my son still. I didn't have any harmful thoughts towards him, which I know can happen. They treated me with lorazepam and sertraline then, which I don't even know whether it helped, but strangely enough, I was on it for 4 months and just came straight off it. So fast forward then a couple of years later, I'm about to split up with my son's dad. My house is a bit of a building site. He leaves. I get the same feelings again, which was like, so let me describe it. It was like terror. So I couldn't sleep, agitation. And a lot of people can't deal with that. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote a book. Because it was, how can you deal with these people that are so agitated, things like that? And I thought that's why it's important to share my story. So yeah, agitation. This time round, they treated me with the same drugs. I eventually went to the doctors reluctantly, got me on the benzos, got me on the sertraline. And by the way, when I mention drugs, I'm not favouring drugs because everyone is individual, as you know. Like one person can be treated with sertraline, brilliant, another person. And this time it was terrible. I got train tracks in my head. I know Sylvia Plath describes having that goldfish bowl, I think, round her head. I think it was a goldfish bowl. That's how it felt. I got train tracks in my head. I went back to the doctors. I said, I feel like I've got train tracks running through my head. I want to jump off a building, whatever. And they said, oh, this isn't the drugs, it's you. So we'll up your dose. So they upped my dose. The train tracks got louder. So I went back again and they changed my drug. They put me on, I think it was metazapine that time, still didn't work. This went on for a long, long time. By this point, I'm addicted to benzos. I'm skinny. Most of my friends were gone. Weirdly enough, the most unexpected people come into your life that you don't expect. I had a couple of old friends that helped me. It was a bit of a story. After the first year, I think they were gone because they were exhausted. I ended up staying in someone's caravan, this guy called Simon, who was lovely. I was very vulnerable and he totally respected me. He was a healer and he kind of looked after me and nurtured me. And so it went on like that. And what I found was people really weren't listening to me at this point and I'd gone quiet. So I'd like to read a poem at the end of this because I write poetry as well just about this experience. And I felt that people weren't listening. And because you've got mental health, they don't really do then because it had gone on so long. And the psychiatrist was literally like saying to me, oh, well, I think the next step's going to be clozapine, which is a serious heavy drug, which is for schizophrenia and stuff. And when I heard that, I thought that really kind of shocked me. But I'd become quieter, but letters were saying, oh, yeah, she's doing really well, blah, blah, blah. And I went out with this lovely woman, so she takes people out for activities. She was taking me out for yoga, and she was lovely. I felt so safe with her. And she always said to me, and the best people always say, this isn't forever, you know, this is just a thing, you're going to get through it. And I felt great with her. And one day she said, God, Emma, this is not right, is it? Let me get you an appointment with a psychiatrist. So bearing in mind, when I had postnatal depression, I was being visited every day because I had a newborn. This time round, I was getting a visit every 2 weeks to my home. I mean, I thought someone was just going to ship me off to hospital because they did that in the 70s. And sometimes I think that was a good thing because people say about institutionalisation isn't good. But I think if you've got the right hospitals, it is a good thing because you're keeping people safe, and I felt I didn't feel safe. So I got this, I think it was a bi-monthly meeting with a psychiatrist. I got a weekly or fortnightly visit from a health worker, and she said, to me on this day, you know, Emma, this isn't right. Do you think you should see another psychiatrist and look at your medication? And I'm like, yeah. And at this point, by the way, I'm trying to come off benzos, so it's quite complicated. So I saw this guy and he literally said I was dishevelled, I looked terrible. I was coming off the benzos and he was going to try a different medication for me. So it took me a week to take that medication because I was so nervous about like medication. I hated it. And the other thing is I tried to come off metazapine, even though it made me feel crap, and I couldn't come off it straight away. I'd get withdrawals. And so I want to talk a little bit about that trap because that happens with a lot of people in mental health and it's really important that you know about it. So I took it. I'll tell you the drug. It doesn't work for everyone, by the way. I know people that have horrific side effects. It's quite a heavy one. I took venlafaxine. A week later, I took the venlafaxine and it took me a week. And I took it and it took 2 hours to work. My head just lifted. So for whatever that drug did to me, it kind of rescued me at that moment. I rang a friend up and said, oh my God, I feel normal. So I met my friend and he started bursting into tears because and then I realised how much pain he'd been through. That was quite emotional because I realised because he'd been staying at I had 3 or 4 people that stayed with me in my house when I didn't want to be alone. And I realised he was so relieved for me, which is really, really nice. What an amazing guy he was. I did a display and it's called Metamorphosising the Light in Recovery. I just did a little note about my mental health journey. And this is a little paragraph I wrote. Do all of us go through a dark journey in our lives? For some get trapped in it and cannot find their way out and suffering remains with them until their natural departure. Others choose to leave because it is too painful and severe within their vessel. It's gone on too long, they cannot see a light. I know this one and I was nearly there until my poor mental health journey took a turn, partially because of a professional finally listened to me, by which point I was utterly addicted to benzos and in a mess. However, he fought the chemical battle with a change of chemicals and this gave me a platform, a will and some hope to start my own recovery. So basically that was me. And because I suddenly had this feeling of like joy that I hadn't felt for 2 years. I was like determined then, and that was because of my son, obviously. And that's the reason I never took my life because I was suicidal most of that time. So let's talk about recovery. So in my recovery, I started writing. So 2016, I started writing a book. It took me 5 years to write. I don't really know what I was doing. I was just like writing paragraphs, and then weirdly enough, someone came into my life that was an English teacher that got anxiety. She said, oh, I did it for you. So we produced it together. And it was all about, because everyone's journey is different, and I don't say this is the way, take medication or do this. It's all about different ways of treating yourself, breathing, yoga, lots of things like that. But it's also talks about medication, coming off medication properly. So that's really important. So if you've got mental health problems, a lot of people are sensitive. That also means, and they're vulnerable. So people with mental health problems, a lot of the time, they fall because we're in a difficult society and they absorb a lot of information, you know. And now I've finally realised that I'm sensitive, but I honour it. But I know when to stop people from sucking my energy. And that's the difference. I didn't really know myself before I had a breakdown. So, you know, in a way, even though it was 2 years, 2 months would have been better. I learnt self-love. I didn't have any self-love. I think people used to see me before I had a breakdown and they saw this confident blonde, whatever. But underneath, I was a mess. And I put that in that exhibition, you know, the shell kind of broke. And I've got a lot of love for myself now, which is brilliant because everyone should have love for themselves. And I'm also very grateful. I'm so happy to be in life, even if I have issues. Like my underlying thought is, oh my God, I can go to bed and sleep tonight. My son is doing really well. And I'm so grateful for everything in my life, even though, don't get me wrong, I have little bouts of depression and anxiety and I deal with them. Like I just let myself work through them and honour myself with them. My son can't remember a lot. He's 14 this year. My son can't remember a lot of it. I met someone else as well. He's got 2 stepdaughters. So I do honour that. And I was in a circle the other week, a women's circle, and it was really nice, but I felt like we were all just moaning and perpetuating. And I think you've got to moan and let it out, but you've also got to honour the good things, because I don't know whether you know Joe Dispenza and all his work, but it's really about reprogramming your mind with a bit of joy and be playful as well and childlike. We've got to get that back into our lives, because particularly in Britain when we've got the miserable weather, we can get so into that little hole. So yeah, that's the 2 things. So I started writing this book, and then at the same time this lovely man called Ray came into my life, and we lost him last year, and he taught me all about foraging, and that was one of the ways I got out of it as well, to get back in nature. And we lost him last January, he died suddenly, and in my grief I wrote. So that's my therapy, is I write, and I write poetry as well. So the medication, if you go on an antidepressant and you think, actually, do you know what, I want to come off this, the doctors will say just come off it in 2 to 4 weeks. Well, for some people they can do that, but not everyone, and particularly if you had mental health problems, please just come off it slowly, because your brain has been changed, the chemicals have been changed, and the trap with the doctor is, and I'll give you an example of this. When I came off the benzos, my psychiatrist gave me the NICE guidance, and it was about a month, I think, that you come off this benzo, and I'd been on it for like a couple of years, and I was on a fairly low dose. So I followed the guidance, and once I'd come off it, I fell into this massive, horrible, even worse than I was feeling, suicidal hole. And I went back to the doctors, and the doctor literally said, well, you've come off the benzos, you've followed the NICE guidance, so this is your anxiety. That was the worst thing he could have ever said, because at that point I just wanted to end my life, because I just thought, if this is me, I cannot live like this. Luckily, I rang Addaction and said, I feel terrible. And they went, that is a benzo withdrawal. You need to get back on the benzos, and you need to withdraw even slower. And it took, the last milligram of that benzo took me 6 months. And I don't know why doctors say that, because I think it's one of the most ridiculous things. Like, benzos for some people can take a long time, and you can come off them, because I did, but it just takes a long time, and that's a trap. Now, antidepressants can be the same. If you just come off them and you go back to doctor, you say, I'm feeling down, the doctor will say, oh, you're depressed again, we'll put you back on it. And these drugs are only really assigned for 6 months, but they just dish them out all the time, and they do it because they haven't got the resources to deal with the core of your problem, where this problem came with, which is what I had to deal with. And that's why I wrote that book, to try and get people to look at themselves and look at their journey. I understand that sometimes we need medication, but if you're going to come off an antidepressant, and also look at CBD perhaps, or something natural that will stop the fall so much. I know with benzos you can't take CBD and things like that, but there are some lovely natural things that really are good, that calm the body. Like rhodiola is really good for women and things like that. Actually, it's good for men as well. But there's lots of herbs that are quite powerful that can help you as well. So obviously always check with the combination. So that's really important. And in my book I write about connection. So we all need to connect, and when we have mental health, I didn't want to be on my own. I was agitated. I needed to be with someone. Sometimes when you get depressed, people just shut themselves away. And there's a guy called Phil Borges who's a journalist, and he writes about tribes, and he said when people have a mental health collapse in tribes, it's seen as a gift, which I thought was beautiful. It doesn't seem like a gift at the time, but literally they put over to the elders. And what do we do with our elders? We put them away in houses and they get depressed. So what we lack in is connection. There's a really lovely TED talk by a lady called Eleanor Langdon. It's quite old now. It's probably about 15 years old. So she went to uni, middle class, was studying psychology, and she started hearing voices, and she got to the point where she was diagnosed with schizophrenia, but she was trying to stab holes in her head to get rid of her thoughts, and she eventually recovered from that, which is amazing. She's described her voices as unresolved traumas, and it's a beautiful speech. And she said, those that harmed me and hurt her grew pale and faint in comparison to those who helped her, which is so similar to what happened with me, because I lost a lot of friends, but I gained a lot of friends that I would have never met if I hadn't have had that breakdown, which is a bit of a crazy thing. So in my book as well, I write a little equation. It was a 4A, so I did chapter 4, and I thought, I've got to squeeze this in, so I did 4A. And it was about when people have a breakdown and you can't cope with it, or it is too much, you need to get people involved and you need to give them a structure. And that will mean saying to them, right, on Monday I'll come around and watch a film with you, but that's all I can do. But I'm going to get someone else on Thursday to come around. So they've got this like link, put a timetable on their fridge. But the first, I put safety, nurture, connection, structure. So safety is obviously just when you first start going down the hill, all you're worried about is your kids, your shopping, your job. That's the thing that needs to be sorted so people can feel safe. And then nurture is all about giving. You're like a child, really. It's about giving reassurance, it's about giving hugs, it's about making sure people are washing themselves, etc. Connection is what I talked about. It's getting people connected, which is getting that connection on a regular basis and not cutting off with them, because that is a big problem in our society at the moment. So I wrote a poem about all these voices. It was about how I wasn't being heard. This is called The Battles Outside My Head, and this is in titles, so it's each person that I was dealing with and how they weren't really listening to what I was saying. So I had a lot of friends coming around going, why don't you just run a mile, and why don't you do this? And all I wanted was just company. I just wanted someone to sit with me. I didn't want people to say, you need to be going out surfing, you need to do, because of course if I could go out surfing I would do, but it doesn't necessarily immediately solve the problem. Sometimes you just want that company and that reassurance that you're safe. And so it was the doctors and everything like that. It's called The Battles Outside My Head. The shame. I'm writing this because sometimes I still feel shame, and so small. If not shame, I feel anger, like somehow I was to blame. Pretending you're okay after being screwed over. I'd love to go back to the way we were, but left to discover alone. I pretend when you ask how I am and my anxiety, like it is something I own. The being heard. I would like to have known medication running train tracks in my head, splitting in two. Better option to be out cold dead was actually the wrong one, but alone, unmonitored and nuts, it was my fault. A decision like this, funnily, was difficult. Despite their calm, collective glances at me and years of study, let's learn to listen, persona. Let's understand. Where was the empathy? Not any part of your degree. The box stickers. I was broken and you were breaking me more, leaving me unchecked as long as those boxes were ticked when I walked out that door. On our bi-monthly soiree, your 20-minute assessment of me while I begged for your help stated I was doing okay. My brain felt like it was being devoured by snakes. A footnote in letter. Occasionally, she complains of headaches. The farmer gamble. Let's play then. Farmer Russian roulette. 3 months of unknowing in the unknown. You're the most agitated person I've ever seen. Let's get you off the benzos and on mirtazapine. I know that might be a benzo withdrawal, or perhaps not. This is quite bad. Let's try stretching your head on amitriptyline and dose you up on a bit of pre-gab. We have beta blockers. They may calm you down, but you're on your own to experiment because there's no mental hospitals in town. I know you're oversensitive to these and sometimes you turn yellow, but most people we get on these after a while feel quite mellow. The only message and plan for me, so it seemed, was failing this, I'll stuff her with clozapine. No turning back from that one. A life surely gone, a serious chemical, a bad trip to be on. Bon voyage. The one's too busy and too frightened. You could walk away from the body I didn't want to be in. I was a prisoner of its confines, but it pressed those buttons and was stealing your time. There is too much bravery in too many kinds, and this is also about your health. At the end of the day, you've got to protect yourself. Overprivileged and overprotected. What were you supposed to do? Your thoughts straining the notion that this could happen to you. However, there is a solution, an offering you could give. Wait for it, drum roll. You could offer advice. Oh joy, here it comes. I should learn to be alone. Only I had the answers. Any more? Oh yes, luckily you had tons. Please, that would suffice. Oh no, you hadn't finished. Okay, if you must, and always say it twice. Look what you have become. You got yourself into this and you need to get yourself out. Come on, throw some more at me before you run. And more good news, despite all the stress I'd caused to everyone, you were happy to stay in touch. It had been hard for you to see me in disgrace, so your amazing assistance will be by text or phone, but not face to face. The model of support is not based on hope, but more on offering bad advice when you think you can cope. Fear of being me. So I curled up and fought the inner war on my bed at home, retarded brain default of error, no good to anyone, constantly in terror. No more Miss Popular now. A self-inflicting, self-hating, sickening, unstable, agitated cretin, thinking of friends sitting round betting that I'd got myself out of this silly mess I'd got myself into. I washed my hands of her. Life is too short, my hours too few. Frightened mom. I didn't end up with that knife in my chest, the scene I played over and over for my own release and everyone else's peace, because I thought that would be best. I held on for my son, even though most could not make space for this dysfunctional case, because I was a humiliation, a social leper, an emotional vampire that would never get better. Don't feel bad. Most didn't have the kindness or the time when it got rough. You did nothing wrong, just chose a social blindness when you had enough. There was no room for me in the lives I thought there should be. The hope bringers. There was a glimpse. A few souls held my hand in the darkness and stroked my damaged head and softly spoken, "My angel, this will pass. You'll be fine. There is no shame. You are just a bit broken. Sail through this treacherous sea and I will sail with you into sunshine until this is just a bad memory. You had faith. It was just temporary. It was just temporary. And in the dark, I learnt to see a tiny spark, a beginning of recovery." Thank you. Thank you.
A space to speak your mind with Cornwall Mind.
Thank you to Emma, and Emma's books are available under the author name Morag Morgan, and you can find them wherever you get your books from. And thanks once again to Emma for sharing her story on this Times Talk Day. That's all for this month's show. If you missed anything, you can download the podcast right now on Apple, Spotify and Amazon Podcasts. And don't forget to like and subscribe to hear the new episode when it comes out, or listen back to any of our previous programmes. For support and information for better mental health, visit cornwallmind.org or call the Mind Helpline during office hours on 0300 123 3393. Or you can call the NHS Crisis Helpline. Just call 111 and press 2. This gives you another way to get urgent help if you're struggling with your mental health. And of course, you can call Samaritans anytime for free on 116 123. If you'd like to be part of the show, get in contact with us. Our email address is aspacetospeakyourmind@gmail.com. And you can find out more about the show if you follow Cornwall Mind on Facebook or Instagram, or on their website, cornwallmind.org. I'm Richard. Have a great February, and we look forward to joining us next time here on A Space to Speak Your Mind.
A Space to Speak Your Mind with Cornwall Mind.